Hi Divas, welcome to my channel where I talk about literally whatever I want to, but mostly books. Today, I just want to get into it because I need to be over with this video. I need to just be done with it because I am reading some of the worst books that I've ever read in my entire life. I was only supposed to read one book for this video, and we'll get into the backstory of that. But then I started simultaneously reading another book because I thought it would be good. And it turned out that it was garbage. I hated it. I thought it was awful. I was really disappointed by it, but let's just start at the beginning. A couple of years ago, my friend was at a Half Price Books where she found a book with the best title and best cover in the entire world. And when she sent me a picture of it, I was like, I need this book. I would sell my soul to the devil to get my hands on this book. And that book was none other than Slay by Matthew Lawrence. This is so fucking banger. I think that we need to have a moment of silence really just to appreciate this because this is incredible. It's incredible. I also love like the little taglines on this. The cover says, "She's gonna knock 'em dead." On the inside it says, "Freya is myth, she is legend, but she's not the only one." And then on the back of the book, one of the blurbs is, "Move over, Percy Jackson. There's a new girl in town." Fucking incredible. Slay is the second book in a series in which I did not read the first. So like kind of automatically take everything that I have to say about this book with a grain of salt because like I haven't read the first book, but also it does that thing where it like kind of catches you up. And so I feel like you don't really need to read the first book. I'm gonna read you the plot summary because my god, is it incredible, and it will explain the book way better than I ever could. Freya is the ancient Norse goddess of love, beauty, war, and death. But power comes from belief. And these days, true believers are hard to come by. Unfortunately for Freya, enemies are still easy to find. So she lives in disguise as Sarah Vanity, an up-and-coming star on a scandalous television series. Freya knows that today's modern gods live on the screen, and Los Angeles offers her both fame and believers, and she desperately needs strength from her believers. With sinister forces at her heels, an ancient enemy returned, and an unknown threat lurking in the shadows, Freya must walk a dangerous line between mortal and goddess, because if she loses her humanity, who will save the world? So this diva is a fucking ancient goddess who is pretending to be a Hollywood television star. I mean, work. This is going to be so horrible. I am so excited. This is also like obviously not my genre of book. It's YA, it's fantasy, neither of which I really enjoy. So this is a hate read. This is an intentional bad faith reading. So if you enjoyed this book, if you enjoyed this series, if you're friends or family of Matthew Lawrence, I wouldn't watch this video, honestly. I don't know if the people who watch my channel would have read and enjoyed Slay, but if you have, this is probably not the video for you. So I've started this book. I'm about 56 pages in. My god, is it crazy? I don't want to say anything about it yet. I want to get a little bit further into the book before I give you my thoughts and my plot summary. But like I said, for this video, I was intending on only reading this book. But while I was reading this, it became very clear to me very quickly that I needed to read another book, otherwise I would not get through this. I needed to read something casually that I would actually enjoy. I have been reading a lot for school recently, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been reading a lot of really rough books for school. And so kind of going back to casual reading and picking up this, I knew that I needed something else as well. I think that picking up and reading this book might be my second worst decision in life, and picking up and reading this book was my worst decision in life. This is Fatale by Jean-Patrick Manchette, and I feel weird like critiquing classics. The reason that I picked this up, I believe, was because I saw like somebody on Twitter saying that Yorgos Lanthimos was going to direct the film adaptation of this, and that just got me curious. I don't know if that tweet was like a straight up lie, or if that project just ended up falling through, or if there hasn't been any developments on it, but I can't find any information on it. But I was still interested in the book. I still wanted to read it. It's kind of like a crime noir thriller. It's also really short. It's 91 pages, and so I thought it would be extremely easy to get through. But this book was absolutely god awful, and when I finished it, I knew that I needed to include it in this video because I could not have just simply wasted my time reading this. I needed to get something out of it. I needed to talk about it. I needed to rant about it. So that is what I'm going to do. I am going to give you a quick plot summary, so there will be spoilers. I'll put timestamps in the description, but you don't want to read either of these books. You really don't want to read either of these books. I am going to do my best to give you a plot summary, but honestly, I don't really remember a lot of what happened in this book, or I don't really know how to explain it. It's really weird, it's really complicated, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just generally really, really rough. So let me fucking get into it. We open up on this scene of like two hunters in the woods trying to, you know, shoot deer, shoot game, and then a woman appears and kills both of them, and she skips town. She does like the very classic spy thriller thing where like she changes her hair, she skips town, she like creates a new identity, shit like that. The identity that she becomes is this woman named Amy, and she ends up going to this town in France called Bleville, I want to say. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce any of the French words in this book. I'll get into this later, but I'm scrolling through the pages to like try and figure out what important plot points I need to tell you, and so much of the beginning of this book is completely irrelevant. It's fucking crazy. Throughout the beginning of this book, Amy is basically just trying to get settled into this new town, and she's trying to get herself acquainted with like the rich people of the town. During this time, we meet way too many characters way too quickly. I think the only important characters that you need to know are Larocque and Lindquist. Larocque and Lindquist run like L&L services or something. L&L is like a manufacturing company that supposedly controls basically the entire town. They're just extremely rich people that have a lot of power, have a lot of money, and Amy is trying to get acquainted with them. One of these days, Baron Jules shows up, and it's clear that Larocque and Lindquist and the other rich people at this party are like not fucking having it. They do not like the Baron. They're trying to get him out of here. The Baron is like kind of acting crazy a little bit, and Amy is there witnessing all of that. Also during this time, we're not really getting a lot of insight onto who Amy is as a person. The book is extremely dry, and it only tells us literally what is happening. It does not tell us how the characters are feeling at any point in time, what their internal monologue is, what their intentions are. But you know that something is coming because Amy says to herself in the mirror, well, it's the same as ever, isn't it? It seems slow, but actually it is quite fast. Sex always comes up first, then money questions, and then later come the old crimes. You have seen other towns, my sweet, and you'll see others, knock on wood. Come on, my sweet, the crimes come last. You have to be patient. So one would assume that this diva has a plan, but when the plan gets revealed, it's really not that satisfying, and I'll let you know why. While this is happening, there seems to be a lot of deaths happening in the town. A baby dies, which is really sad and like completely unnecessary in my opinion. Then an old woman dies, and when the old woman dies, somebody comes forward and says that like all of their cattle has been dying. This is all connected to L&L manufacturing. Something happened. It genuinely is not important, which is fucking crazy that it isn't important. I think it's only there to show us that like, oh, Larocque and Lindquist have secrets, and then also to like keep you captivated in the book when there is quite literally nothing else going on. The first more than half of this book is just Amy getting acquainted with the town. This is a 91-page book. It takes until about like page 60 for the plot to actually start kicking in. When your book is 91 pages long, you cannot wait until page 60 to get the plot going. It is absurd. I'm literally flipping through this book and there's a character named Christine Moutet. I have no idea who she is or the importance of her in this book. That is a huge issue. If I can't even remember some of your characters in your 91 page book, that is a huge issue. And I would usually be willing to take the responsibility of that and be like, oh, maybe I wasn't reading close enough. Maybe I should have been taking notes, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Because I feel like a lot of the times when I don't really understand a book or the plot of a book, it is my fault in a way, but I genuinely do not believe that about this book. I think that this book is just so dry and meandering and boring and nothing happens in it that there is no way that you can retain any information about it. The Baron and Amy have met up at the Baron's apartment a couple of times to have conversations about like the rich people. We do not know Amy's intentions in any of this. She seems to be kind of just like gathering information, but also some of the time she's like, what you're doing is wrong. I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't want to be a part of this. And once again, we do not know the reason for anything she is doing or saying. So it makes it really hard to connect with her and her actions, especially later in the book. One day, Baron shows Amy all of these files that he has on these rich people and all of the dirt that they have. We don't even particularly get to learn about the dirt, which is fucking annoying. I think one of the only things that we learn about is that like one of the guys paid for an abortion and that's the dirt, which like, fuck it, sure, whatever. I don't care. I really don't care. So the Baron shows Amy these files. She runs away from the house because she like doesn't want to be a part of it. But the Baron ends up calling these rich people over because he wants them to see these files before he releases it to the public. When Amy runs away from the apartment, she ends up like hiding in like this kind of like woody area off the road where she waits for the rich people's cars to go to the Baron's apartment and then come out of the Baron's apartment, where she stops them and she gets in the car with these people. She does it like one at a time, which I'm not 100% sure how that ended up panning out, because I'm pretty sure that like all of them arrived at the same time in separate cars, and it's made clear that she has had separate conversations with all of these people, but we only see the conversation with one of these guys where she like stops him on the road and has this conversation. So I'm like, how the fuck did she talk to the other guys without them knowing? Because again, I'm pretty sure even though they showed up in separate cars, they all showed up at the same time. And the conversation that she has with these guys cannot take place over the phone, because as we learn, what she is telling them is that she is willing to kill the Baron so that he doesn't release the information if they pay her. And that's kind of revealed to be like the plan the entire time. She didn't actually have a plan coming into Blaeville. She more so was just getting acquainted with the upper class so that she could find out who their enemies are, plant the idea of like wanting to kill them, and then like offering that solution basically. And that is exactly what she does. All of the guys end up agreeing separately to pay her a bunch of money, I think in total 200,000 francs. So she goes to the Baron's apartment, tries to kill him, but kind of changes her mind at the last minute. She does shoot him and he does end up dying, but not before they have a conversation where she is being like, oh, I regret this. I don't want to kill you. I was hired, but like, these men are horrible. They're like scum. I hate them. And like, I'm on your side, blah, 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 blah. And literally none of this makes any sense for Amy as a character because, again, this entire book has been so dry and her as a character has been so cold. We haven't seen any like compassion or emotion come out of her. And even the compassion and emotion that we have seen come out of her usually is at the expense of the Baron. Usually she's at the Baron's house being like, I do not want to be a part of this job that you are doing. So why the fuck, without any context or any information, is she suddenly just changing her tune about the Baron? But like I said, she does shoot the Baron, he does end up dying, and then she runs to like the police station in hysterics and is like, I killed Baron Jules, I'm confessing, get me in the police station so that I can make my statement without LaRocque or Lindquist getting in my way, because they're the ones that hired me, and if I'm going to jail, they're going to jail too. That's basically what she's saying, but the police officer, for some fucking reason, takes her to the bar instead because he's like, you're clearly in hysterics, you need to calm down. Which, first of all, if I was a cop and somebody was in hysterics, firstly, point blank period, I would not take somebody who needs to calm down to a bar. And secondly, if Diva is admitting to a murder and being like, get me into this station for questioning, I would get her into this station for questioning, no matter how hysterical she was being. Because, okay, hypothetically, let's say she didn't actually kill the Baron, right? She still clearly has something going on, and I feel like a cop would just take her to the police station. There, they could have a formal interview, figure out what's going on, take a chill pill, calm down, not go to a fucking bar. This book fucking pisses me the fuck off. Now, I'm going to be completely real about this next section. I have no idea if it takes place at the bar, the police station, or one of the rich men's house. There is information leading me to believe all three of these things, and I don't know if it's ever confirmed, and if it is, I just completely glossed over it. Because at this point, I was like, I just need to get through this. I just need to finish this book, which is never something you want to think when reading a book, especially if it's 91 pages. How is a 91 page book an absolute slog to get through? That is absurd. Anyway, the rich men are trying to figure out some sort of deal with Amy. They are like, you can take the money, you can leave, don't say anything, we won't say anything, the plan can just stay the same, we'll be good and gorgeous. Amy does not do this. We don't know why. We literally have no idea why. I need to read you this section word for word because I could not believe what I was reading. It was fucking crazy. LaRocque says, how can you be trusted? I can't, said Amy. There were 2 desks in the room, cluttered with papers, along with metal filing cabinets and 2 chairs. Amy grabbed one of the chairs, jumped onto a filing cabinet, and holding the chair out in front of her, leaped through the closed window. She fell from the 2nd story in a shower of broken glass. She landed on all 4s. The chair, which she was still holding, shattered into pieces beneath her. Diva just fully jumped onto a cabinet and out of the window. I'm like literally speechless, and I was speechless when I read it too. Literally the most interesting thing that happens in this entire book, and it comes out of fucking nowhere. So she's outside of this building. What building? I'm not sure. Literally, I have no fucking idea. And now all of these rich men are looking for her in the dark. They keep claiming like, oh, we're not here to kill you. We can still talk things through. Like, just give us the opportunity. Like, we can figure something out. Amy is not taking this, and she ends up killing one of the rich people. I don't remember how, and frankly, it's not very important. Then, when LaRocque discovers that one of the people have been killed, he goes to his car where his wife is, for some reason, gives her a gun, and is like, just in case you need to protect yourself. She's like, what the fuck is happening? LaRocque is like, don't worry, I'll take care of it, everything will be fine, but here's the gun, just in case. Pretty sure that Amy ends up killing the rest of the rich people. I think that there's 4 of them, and I think she kills all of them, but not without taking some damage herself. She has like a lot of splinters and like glass cuts from jumping out of the 2nd-story window. She doesn't have any broken bones, but she is kind of having like a difficult time walking, I believe, as well. So after she killed all of these men, the Roque's wife, Sonia, comes out of the car, sees Amy like covered in blood, and sees her husband's dead body, and tries to kill her. And I also need to read you this paragraph because it's also fucking crazy and it makes no sense. Keep in mind, during this entire time, we really have not gotten to see anything about LaRoque and Sonia's relationship at all. So just like keep that in mind. There's no character development in either of these characters, and that's what makes this paragraph even fucking crazier. Sonia said, "I have to settle things with you, you little shit." She fired with the small automatic and missed Amy by a mile. It was a rudimentary weapon with a very short barrel. Accuracy could not be expected from it. "Couldn't you have left us the hell alone?" Sonia shouted at Amy. "I don't care what he was. I loved him. I loved him, you damn bitch." Sonia fired again. She was now 3 meters from Amy, who was on her knees. The small caliber round struck Amy full in the chest. Amy toppled backwards. The back of her head hit the roadway with a soft thump. "Serves you right, you cow," observed Sonia. "I loved him, my little guy. I lived only for him." She placed the barrel of the little automatic next to her eye and blew her brains out. After that, we have 2 more pages of the book. And the ending of the book is especially fucking crazy because what Amy ends up doing is she ends up stealing the car of Sonia and LaRoque, but because she's extremely injured and extremely tired, she ends up falling asleep on the road and getting into a really, really bad car crash where she ends up dying. I'm gonna read you the last 2 sentences of the book because my god. "After a moment, I don't know whether it is a part of a vision she had on account of the blood loss or for some other reason, but it seems to me that she was now wearing a splendid, possibly sequined scarlet dress, that there was a glorious golden dawn light, and that in high heels and her scarlet evening gown, intact and exquisitely beautiful, Amy was with great ease climbing a snow-covered slope like those in the Mont Blanc Massif." 1 sentence. "Sensual women, philosophically minded women, it is to you that I address myself." And that's the end of the book. I do want to talk about that last sentence, "Sensual women, philosophically minded women, it is to you that I address myself." I'm pretty sure it's a quote or a reference because there's literally a quote bubble right underneath it. But it is a horrible way to end the book, and I also think it speaks to the treatment of Amy as a character. Amy in this book is a sexual object, basically. And to be fair, she does use her sexuality to her advantage sometimes, but also not really. She's not particularly taking an active stance to use her sexuality as a weapon. She's more so just like a hot woman with pretty privilege, and so men treat her differently. I hope that that distinction between like a femme, cunty villain who is able to do whatever she wants because of her sexuality and like a killer with pretty privilege, I hope that difference is distinct because there are like a lot of sexual references to her in this book. Nothing too crazy in my opinion, but they also like don't go anywhere or mean anything. It's literally just to tell us that she is sexy and pretty and that she has privilege because of that. It's not used in any interesting way or like a weapon that she can use against these men. It's crazy, and that's what I was expecting, and I was really disappointed when it just didn't happen. I also think it's deeply funny that it ends with philosophically minded women because Amy is a very one-dimensional character, and we have not gotten any philosophy in this book, really. This was a wildly frustrating book to me because I feel like it was an extremely plot-driven book with absolutely no plot. The plot does not really pick up until the Baron dies, which is not until page 64 in a 91-page book The plot does not pick up until page 64. And I would be less mad at that if this setup was like intentional and really well thought through, but it wasn't, and it knew that it wasn't because it kept having to hook you in with these weird things that were happening in the town. Amy is talking to herself in the mirror about how the crimes come last. People are dying and nobody really knows why. Shit with the Baron is happening, which is completely irrelevant to the rich men and don't come back. And then the book ends with just like everybody dying. Okay. And like I said, this book is extremely dry, and we do not get any insight into any of the characters or their motivations, which makes their actions seem so fucking crazy. Why did Amy feel bad about killing the Baron when she's killed before? She is a killer. Again, she has done this before. She has said that this is what she does. She goes into town, figure out what needs to be dealt with, and deals with it for money. So why was the Baron all of a sudden different? It also says on the back of the cover that she means to sniff out old grudges. So with that and the insinuation that she has like a specific plan, I thought that like somebody from her past was going to be in this town and that is who she was going to try and kill, which I think would have been a lot more interesting. But again, that doesn't happen. She has no connection to any of the people in this town. I was waiting for that plot twist moment to come where like everything connects, and then when everything did connect, I was just wildly disappointed. And it's extremely disappointing because it's not what the book is selling you. The book is selling you a woman who is a professional hitman, who kills people for money, who goes into this town to solve old grudges with supposedly a plan that is referenced a couple of times in the first half of the book that then never happens. I guess it does happen in the sense of like her plan being like to find the rich people and see who they need to kill, but like she does that in every town. Why is there any old grudges? It also says the master manipulator falls prey to pure and wayward passion. There's absolutely no passion in this book, especially not between Amy and the Baron, who I am assuming this cover is talking about. It says, an unholy original, Jean-Patrick Manchette transforms the modern detective novel into a weapon of gleeful satire and anarchical fun. This was not fucking fun. I guess you could call it satire, but like, I don't really think it is. I mean, the message at the end of the book is like, rich people bad, capitalism bad, which like, okay, well, yes. And while I want to give the book like a little bit of grace because it was published in the 70s, I feel like that's not a good enough excuse for it. And listen, I can confidently say that this is probably the worst book that I've ever read in my entire life. But that's not because the bad things about this book are horribly offensive. I think at worst, it's just very dry, doesn't have a lot of character development, and doesn't make a lot of sense, which in the grand scheme of things are not the worst crimes to commit. However, what I will say is that I cannot think of a single positive thing to say about this book. Not one. And even like my least favorite books that I absolutely hated, that I thought were garbage, that I will rip to shreds literally any chance I get, I will say at least there was one thing that I liked about it. At least I thought this part was pretty well done. But I think that this is the first book that I've read where truly I don't have one positive thing to say about it. I guess you could say like it's positive because like I finished it, but that's also not saying much because again, it's 91 pages. Of course I was going to finish it. But throughout the entire book, I wanted to DNF it so bad. So yeah, this book sucked and I was extremely frustrated with it, especially because again, I thought that this was going to be my break from bad books while reading Slay. I haven't even fucking gotten to Slay. It's just rough out here. It's just really, really rough out here. I am hoping to read another short book that I will enjoy while I continue to read this. I will update you once I'm further into the book or once I'm finished. I don't know when. Yeah, this is rough, and this was especially rough. My God, I fucking hated it, and my God, am I so happy that I don't have to think about it or touch it again. I'm over it. Hi Divas, today I come here with sorrow in my heart because I have to deliver some really disappointing news, and that is I could not finish Slay. I tried my best, I really did, but at a certain point I knew that I needed to protect my peace, okay? Now obviously that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it. I suffered too much in the very short amount that I read to not talk about it. I don't even want to tell you guys how many pages I got into this book because so much shit happens in the pretty small amount of pages I made through. But before we get into the book, I want you guys to take a minute for the shirt. They stayed up late. They trashed the house. They were bad kittens, and they acted as though they didn't even care. I'm so obsessed with this shirt. I love it. So, I mean, let's just fucking get into it. First things first. Oh my God. Now, Slay is a book that wastes no time getting into its horrible writing. The first 2 sentences are, "The lava hasn't even cooled yet. Fat drops of rain hiss on the glowing pit of molten slag that used to be the home of my enemies." What a sentence. And then later on the same page, "Did I mention I was a goddess? I'm not sure if you knew that already." Oh my God. We learn a little bit about this company called Fine Midi. I think all you really need to know about it is that they're trying to like capture and control gods. Although I'm a little bit confused because like they're described as trying to capture gods, but then there are like some gods that are like actively helping them, I think. No matter what, Freya is trying to destroy the company. She hates Fine Midi. That's like her enemy in this book. She says, "They wish to contain the gods, to shackle us all, and I'm certain you know how I felt about that." Okay, now you're gonna have to stick with me because we get introduced to so many characters. It's fucking crazy. First, we get introduced to Haika, Namaka, and Pele, I want to say. If I'm butchering those names, I am so sorry. They are sister goddesses, and they're all friends of Freya's and trying to help her. We also get introduced to Samantha, who is a mortal and who is the daughter of the CEO of Fine Midi, but is also trying to help Freya destroy them. I wrote down that this book seems so intent on introducing as many people as possible, which I still agree with, but also this is a sequel, and so like possibly I should have already known who these characters are, because we also get introduced to Sekhmet. Oh God, I'm butchering that name as well, I just know it. She's the Egyptian goddess of righteous wrath, and we learn a little bit more about their relationship in a second. I also find this description of Samantha's dad to be really interesting. Her father was Gideon Dress, an all-around vile individual, and up until I murdered him in a waterfall of lava last month, Fine Midi's CEO. Samantha has had a rather tragic past, with what her dad sacrificing her mom to a god of darkness and being a colossal ass. Like, I just think the phrase colossal ass doesn't really live up to the crimes of sacrificing her mom to a god of darkness. She also later says, "I discovered her mother had actually become a vessel to contain that god of darkness, and I may have inadvertently released it to wreak havoc upon the world." Now, like I said, I had to DNF this, but I'm like so curious if that comes back. There's a lot of things that feel like foreshadowing that I was like a little bit interested to see if it was gonna happen. But I guess I'll never know. We also get introduced to Nathan, who I want to kill with a gun and bullet. I just hate Nathan as a character, but we'll get there. The first description we get of him is high priest and web designer, which he is a high priest and that is important to his character, but web designer has like not come back up. I don't know if it's a reference to the previous book, if it's something to plant for something that's gonna happen later, but like I don't think that there's been any connection between Nathan and web designer. We also get a moment of Freya like basically telling us that Samantha might betray her. Like she has a moment of doubt and then she says, "Then mentally I shrug away my doubts. I've always been a trusting goddess, and right now I'm just happy to see that Samantha is alive and well." We even see Sekhmet be like, "I'm not super trusting of this diva." So again, I feel like this is foreshadowing for Samantha to betray them, which I feel like this is the worst example of that foreshadowing, because if it is foreshadowing, oh my god, it is so fucking obvious. But if it's not foreshadowing, it's like kind of Chekhov's gun in a way. Like you're planting the seed for Samantha to betray these divas, and if she's not going to betray them, why would you plant that seed? Anyway, Samantha basically gives Freya a envelope with like top secret information, and then while she's putting the envelope into her bag, she says, "It's not a great fit. I went with cute today, not spacious." This is going to be a glaring issue in this book. The way that these goddesses switch between like modern language and like goddess language is so fucking funny. It's just like crazy that like a goddess is like, "Ugh, I went with cute today, not spacious." You know what I mean? Like it just feels a little bit silly, I say, as I'm reading a book with this fucking cover. We learn that Nathan is a priest who saved Freya from a mental hospital. We learn a little bit of that lore, but I don't know like too much of it. Honestly, considering some of the things that we get to in this book, I don't want to know Matthew Lawrence's opinion on mental hospitals, because this book ranges from like silly and like bad to like extremely offensive and like how did this happen? And then I fucking love this sentence. I think it's so funny. "I spin around, bewildered, before practically throwing myself onto the asphalt." That is so fucking funny. That image of just spinning around, bewildered, before throwing yourself onto the asphalt. Like, let that sit in this space. That is such a beautiful image. And then, I kid you not, a giant turtle descends from the sky. It recognizes its own absurdity a little bit because she says, "I stifle the urge to laugh, but just barely. Keep it together, Sarah. This is serious." So it knows that this is like kind of fucking stupid, but it happens anyway. Like, it's not interesting enough or funny enough to be like a self-aware humor type of thing. But anyways, it's basically just some god that they have to escape, and they do so by driving away in their Honda, and I'm dead serious. They're running away, and it says Pele grins at that and puts an extra burst of speed, aiming for our Honda at the back of the lot. So I think that because they're still technically in the volcano, which like that has not been established other than that first sentence. I think that Pele like causes a river to come in because she's like a water spirit. And that confuses me as to like how that stops the turtle, but like, okay. And again, it's just really funny to me that these 5 goddesses defeat this giant turtle god and then run away and drive in their Honda. Something that will continue to come up through this book is that it literally makes no sense. Like, I do not understand how they have gotten from point A to point B. And I will reread the passages multiple times and I still won't understand what's happening. I don't understand how a giant turtle came from the sky and they were in a volcano and then somebody like called a river and escaped, and then there's no sign of the turtle and they just run away and escape through their Honda. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they introduced this giant turtle and then like literally less than a page later there's no sign of the turtle or any form of pursuit and they just like escaped. It was like completely unnecessary. There's another instance of crazy dialogue. "It bodes ill for us that fine MIDI controls such gods." Bodes ill is just such an interesting word choice to me. Another great example of interesting word choice is There's a stern man standing in front of a government building, looking official. Like, there wasn't a better adjective for that. We couldn't think of anything else other than looking official. So, in the envelope that Samantha gave Freya, there is a picture of a god. And when asked who this person is, she says, a dead man. And then she says, I take a moment to gather my thoughts. And then I begin the story of how I lost everything. And that is the end of chapter 1. That's right. That is one chapter of this book. Chapter 2 is the craziest chapter in this book, in my opinion. This is where it gets from just like cringe and bad to like extremely sexist. Basically, like a long time ago, she tried to conquer the world, and at one point she ended up fighting with a god named Ares. Freya is a god of love, beauty, war, and death, so she thought she would easily be able to conquer this world. She ends up losing the battle, and she says, I am a god of war, but far too late I realize he is one as well, and this conflict has only fueled him. He is battle personified, a creature undiluted by concepts such as love and fertility, and in this arena, he is my better. That is 15 pages into this book. While he's defeating her, he says, you will make a fine trophy. And she responds, I am no man's prize. And then he says, pathetic girl, I am the destroyer of men, the stormer of walls, the lord of war. He sneers and brings me closer. The world is my prize. The terrible thing is, he's right. So he ends up defeating her, but because she's immortal, he ends up like cursing or shackling her or something and basically turns her into a lifeless curio. There's also a really funny sentence where it says, I can feel my worshippers dwindling, my strength fading. Christianity is spreading, its missionaries slithering through my homelands, and I have no one to blame but myself. And I just find that really funny. But I want to talk about the battle with Ares and Freya for a second, because I did a little bit of research, because I wanted to give Matthew Lawrence a little bit of faith, or at least just see if he based that story in actual Norse mythology. Because I thought, okay, if there's an actual battle between Freya and Ares, where Freya lost, then that makes this a little bit better. And based off of the research that I did, I could not find a single instance of a battle between Freya and Ares in any sort of mythology, period. So this is a story that he just completely made up on his own, which, like, whatever, right? Like, you don't need to base everything in mythology. This is a fiction book. This is a reimagining. But, like, I feel like this is incredibly sexist. Like, this is crazy. Like, again, he is battle personified, a creature undiluted by concepts such as love and fertility, and in this arena, he is my better. Anyway, she's being traded off as a curio for, like, hundreds of thousands of years before she ends up meeting Sekhmet, who removes the curse and the spell from her, and it has been Freya's mission ever since to find and kill Ares, and she still has not found him. And that's when she says, in the end, I committed myself to a mental hospital in Florida, intending on spending the rest of my existence there. And that's where Nathan comes in and rescues her from the mental institution. Again, I really do not want to know Matthew Lawrence's opinions on mental hospitals after that incredibly out of touch description of that battle. Again, we have this seed of Samantha not being the person who she claims to be, because Namaka says, how would Samantha even know any of that? Why would she send you after Ares? None of this makes sense. And Freya says, these are excellent questions, but my head is filled with the glorious drumbeat of battle, drowning out pesky things like logic and self-control. So again, we are having this seed being planted, and I just want to reiterate that it's unsatisfying either way, if this is foreshadowing or if it isn't foreshadowing. There's also a section that is so completely unnecessary. She writes, I get up and walk to our computer. I jiggle the mouse so it comes out of sleep mode, head to the web browser. And, like, why did we need any of that? You couldn't have just said, I went to the computer and I Googled Like, hello? And now we are on chapter 3, which is titled as From Nathan's Perspective, however, is completely told through third person. Because, like, the previous chapters have been labeled as Freya, and it's been in first person. So, why are we switching to Nathan's perspective but not doing it in first person? It just makes Nathan seem more lifeless. And in Nathan's chapter, there is just this weird romanticization and sexism that continues. He says, the Valkyrie and his goddess is clearly taking charge, while love and beauty, laughter and life, the things he adores her for, are being kicked to the curb. And that just feels really, really weird to me. Like, something else, something else. I also want to read you this dialogue from Haika, and I want you to remember that she is an ancient Hawaiian goddess. Gross. So what? We're just gonna traipse off to kill this Theo guy because he's actually some jerk-ass Greek god I've never even heard of? There's also a typo where it says, really? Namaka says, incredulous. I think it's meant to be incredulously, right? And then she says, he's all over your beloved gadgets. Didn't you fight him in a video game? And what about that silly show with the warrior princess? None of which makes sense. Again, I'm assuming that these are references to the previous book, but it doesn't make any sense still. I'm going to read you 2 lines of dialogue from Freya, and they come less than a page apart. The first is, it's going to be incredible. I'm going to eat his heart. Like, literally rip it out of his stupid uniform, show it to him, and then eat the damn thing. And then the line of dialogue on the next page is, I've waited over 900 years for this. How many of your lifetimes is that? If you think my vendetta against Fine Minnie matters in the face of his sins, then you cannot fathom the depths of my hatred. And again, that is such an insane contradiction of dialogue between, like, modern and, like, the real goddess way of speaking. It also writes, Nathan's learned a great deal about the true nature of the world, not to mention a handful of spells. Freaking spells. Freaking spells, you guys! It also says, but the sinking feeling of his gut tells him he doesn't quite understand how gods work. Which, like, fucking obviously. And this weird thing that he does where he's, like, romanticizing Freya happens again. He says, I know that, but is this really what you want? To sink yourself into revenge? Hatred? You're a god of love, not ... Which, like, yes, she is a goddess of love, but she also is a goddess of war and death. And it's going to really piss me off if Nathan continues to try and be like, no, you just need to be, like, bubbly and happy all the time. He really said they want that complex female character, but I do not. He's so... He also refers to Freya as his goddess, which I fucking hate. It's gross, it's possessive, it's feeding into this idea that, like, Freya is a goddess of, like, light and beauty, and she's supposed to be, like, this perfect, polished creature, and she's all his, you know what I mean? And it's so weird because Nathan seems, like, very against this, and then he realizes this isn't about them, which, like, obviously, and then says, okay, I'm with you, wherever you go, whatever you're after, I'm with you. And I just feel like it was really that easy. Really? We then learn that Freya thinks that she's influencing Nathan. The book says, following Freya, or any god for that matter, meant risking a little of one's personality, or surrendering a part of oneself to their power. That kind of thing apparently went double for him. As Freya's high priest, their connection meant he got more than magic. According to her, he has a much higher chance of experiencing those changes. And it feels a little bit strange to me. I, again, looked it up, and it seems like that's not particularly a part of mythology. And again, I don't want to be too nitpicky about it, because at the end of the day, this is a modernized fiction take. Like, this isn't a historical record. But on the other hand, it just makes it feel so, like, separated from the mythology. You know what I mean? I never read the Percy Jackson series, but I feel like it was a lot of people's entry point into mythology. partly because it was fairly accurate. I could be wrong about that. Drag me in the comments if I am, and if Percy Jackson is also incredibly inauthentic, but like, I don't know, this just feels, I'm like, something else. I don't like this. The book also says he knows that she's been having trouble with her goal of destroying Fine Midi. Perhaps Ares is a way of ignoring those difficulties, which makes literally no sense because we literally have learned that Ares is now a part of Fine Midi. So, like, she's kind of killing two birds with one stone in a way. Like, if she's able to defeat Ares, she defeats a really large part of Fine Midi, which will make it easier to destroy. And then, if she destroys Fine Midi, she destroys Ares. There's also a sentence that came out of absolutely nowhere where Nathan is not liking the hint of irritation he can feel trickling out of his god, which the reason that I say that it comes out of nowhere is because Freya has not said anything, nor has she had a physical description of her in an entire page. So he's just now not liking the irritation trickling out. It's just like horrible writing. Like, you're writing something, moving away from it, and then reacting to it. It makes absolutely no sense. Here's another incredible example of the crazy dialogue. Pelly leans over to read the webpage over Freya's shoulder. Handsome fellow, little cold for my liking though. Figures, Haika says with a snort. Pelly sighs, like you want to date him. My note next to that was, I just need to let this go or I'll never get through this. And then, like 2 pages later, Pelly says, I fear this is a path you must walk without us, my friends. We will support you if we can, but our place is here. We must restore ourselves in these parks and, in time, face the larger threat of Fine Midi as a whole. Know that we do not consider this an ending, merely a different trail. And just the contradiction of the tone of that dialogue is so jarring every single time. It's also very intent on trying to do that thing where, like, while they're doing a serious task, they're like cracking one-liner jokes at each other to like try and make the moment funnier. And the jokes are just like really fucking stupid and completely unnecessary. Like, there's an entire half page that I feel like could have been cut because it's just stupid fucking banter. We learn that Ares has been a general for like every single major battle of American history. It says war is his answer to humanity's cynicism, and he's like the general for World War II, the Civil War, like, and then it says, well, wait, you mean he's the reason we're still blasting craters out in the Middle East? I don't think that he's the reason we're still, blasting craters out of the Middle East. Blasting craters is fucking crazy. There's also this really funny image that is Freya starting a job at a local theme park because she discovered that some of the youngest visitors there believed in her so earnestly as a fictional character that she was charged by the strength of that conviction. And that image is just so funny, like a goddess working as a Disney princess. Not even a Disney princess, it says a local theme park. There's another example of Nathan being really possessive. After Freya lays out the entire plan, he says he feels they might actually be a good idea. They might actually be a good idea? And again, I feel like that's grammatically incorrect because he's not talking about them as a duo. He's talking about Freya's plan. So saying they might actually be a good idea makes no sense in reference to the plan. It should be he feels it might actually be a good idea, or it feels they might actually have a good idea. And if it is that, it shouldn't be they, it should be she, because Freya is the one who came up with the plan. I want to read an example of the stupid fucking humor in this book. Nathan remains silent a moment before he says, Sekhmet, you literally killed the pizza delivery guy last week because he was late. He promised it would be 30 minutes or less, she snarls, whipping her head around to glare daggers at him. Okay, just, commenting is all. Only a comment, he says, putting up his hand. Smooth, Nathan. Just fucking stupid. I, like, something else. Now, I don't know if Matthew Lawrenson is trying to say something in this next quote, And I'm curious your guys' take because, in my opinion, it's funny either way. Freya says, "There's no room for new religions now, no appreciation for magic and wonder. The only fantasies humankind will accept in this day and age are of their own creation. Books, movies, and games built to entertain, not answer prayers." So I feel like it could be a commentary on religion or media, but again, like, it feels a little bit silly if it is. Or isn't. I think it's funny either way. Freya knows that she needs to get worshippers to gain her power back because at the strength that she's at right now, she is not going to be able to defeat Ares or find Midi. It says, Freya turns the computer and pulls up a map of the United States. Then she traces a line from Florida to California to a dot labeled Los Angeles. I'm gonna be a star. And like, why would she pull up the computer, Google a map of the United States, touch Florida to California, instead of being like, I'm gonna move to Hollywood and become a television star? You know what I mean? There was also very little need for us to get this chapter from Nathan's perspective, other than he is extremely possessive of Freya. Then there's this going away party for them, which is such an interesting scene. It is a party of like godly proportions, you know? They're like, you know, doing their magic and all that jazz. But it seems like there's also mortals there because Sekhmet fretted out the handful of social media addicts who tried to hold on to their gadgets. So it's like implied that everybody needed to like put their phones back in their cars. Like the mortals are there, but she's using her magic to alter their memories and then like again forcing everybody to leave the phones in the car. Which like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm pointing it out. It's just like a very interesting picture, especially because Nathan is DJing. That's the one thing that makes this event like so fucking crazy to me. This high priest is just like DJing. There's also a full brand shout out. It writes, mixing in a pile of spell components I've been building with the help of Amazon.com and some local markets. Like, the Amazon.com shout out is crazy. Here are 2 pages where the only annotation I had is boring, because it was. Sekhmet ends up being like called over from airport security because she brought a knife on the plane. And again, I know that she's like an Egyptian goddess, but surely she knew better than to bring a knife on a carry-on bag. Freya, since she's a goddess of love, just basically ends up influencing the TSA agent, and he basically just lets them go. Which, like, okay, fucking whatever. The TSA agent says, passengers aren't allowed to bring weapons on the plane, ma'am. Well, that's fine then, she says. I have no intention of using it at such time. Ma'am, it's still a knife. And I love that. Ma'am, it's still a knife. Freya is obviously mad at Sekhmet and says, we're not in ancient Egypt anymore, Sekhmet. And I feel like if Sekhmet were to last this long in the modern world, and like if she has been in the modern world for a minute, which has been implied since she's close friends with Sarah, like I feel like she would already know this. There's more foreshadowing where she is talking about the knife and she says, there's an intelligence within it, a ghost of prophecy and power. The weapon is meant for the hands of a warrior who will wage this world's last battle. I couldn't care less about the magic it provides. I only wish to ensure I play a role in such a conflict. Which feels like foreshadowing, but again, who knows if it is? I didn't finish this bullshit. At one point, Nathan says, palling around with gods is basically the best thing ever. I just feel like that is such a boring and stupid way to put that, quite frankly. He says, I want to do more than stand around and look pretty. And she responds, and here I thought you'd found your calling. And I feel like that's flirting, right? That's obviously flirting. But in the last chapter, she just mentioned how she was worried about influencing him. She's literally worried that, like, Nathan is falling for her and then actively flirting with him. It's crazy. And then she says, I'm a goddess of magic, which this kind of came out of nowhere. Freya has not been described as a goddess of magic. Like I've said a billion fucking times, she's a goddess of love, beauty, war, and death. And yes, maybe she has magic abilities, but she's not particularly a goddess of magic. And it makes especially less sense because she says, that means my followers are supposed to conjure some pretty impressive stuff. Which, again, is not, like, accurate to Norse mythology based off of, like, the little research that I did. They're also talking about, like, the other actresses in Hollywood and, like, the other competition. And she says, I might just have an edge on all of them, though. Which, like, obviously, she is a goddess. Of course she has an edge on them. She can literally, like, we literally just saw her influence a TSA agent into letting Sekhmet bring a knife on a plane. Obviously, she has an edge on mortals. Fucking duh. There's another banger end of chapter where she says, I had the fear that someone was watching. As it turns out, someone was. Boom, next chapter. Fucking ugh, so annoying. When she's describing Los Angeles, she says, I mean, I've been to big cities before, but this place has a certain extra spice to it. Ew, I don't like that. Something else. Another adjective, please. There's another quote here that I think, at best, is badly written, and at worst, pretty offensive. Freya says, there's an honesty here I never realized I was missing. A sense that whoever you are, or whatever you do, it's okay. There's a place for you. Every culture, every fetish, every lifestyle, every last one is accepted somewhere in this sprawling land of sun and sin. She's saying that about LA. Let that sink in. I don't know, maybe I'm the friend that's too woke, but like the instant connection that I made from a queer person's perspective was that LA and Hollywood is like famously a pretty accepting place for the queer community. And so when you say whoever you are or whatever you do, it's okay in relation to LA, my brain goes, oh, queer culture. But then to say every fetish, every lifestyle is accepted in the land of sun and sin? Ew, no, something else. There's another annotation that I have that literally just says, my eyes are glossing over the page. This book is so exponentially boring. That's not its worst crime. It just is crazy, crazy boring. The plot makes no sense. The characters make no sense. It's an impossible read. Like, I know that I'm pointing out some funny, campy parts, but like, seriously, it is such a brain-numbing experience to read this book. They end up going to this spa in LA, and she says, my swagger ends 2 steps into the spa. Swagger is crazy, but the reason that her swagger ended when she walked into the spa is because the receptionist looks normal, but there's a searing, violent letter standing out on her forehead. It says, saith Horeos for proper service. Nathan seems unfazed, so it's like clear that mortals can't see it, only goddesses can. Sekhmet ends up saying it, and then the receptionist's eyes blaze with that light and says, welcome, honored guests. It's like such a stupid fucking moment. Well, I don't know. It's whatever to me. It feels a little stupid, which again, I'm saying that about a book called Slay with this cover. Obviously, it's fucking stupid. Because I will be a little bit honest, when it's describing like the luxury of this spa, I was a little bit into it. I was like, okay. I really wish that like this book immediately got more into like the beauty and the glamour of it. And that's kind of the sad part about DNFing this, is because I am sure that it might get more into that, but I just can't keep doing this. But anyways, apparently like this godly spa is ran by some people who are a part of Fine Midi. And so there's like this employee that like tries to get them out of there. It's a really boring section, honestly. Again, my eyes were just glazing over the page at this point. I was so over it. Here's another sentence that I genuinely don't understand what it's saying, and even then I think that it's a boring sentence.
Glittering chains crisscross the door, adding their own magic to the chaos and sealing the whole affair with undisputable finality. What does that mean? Literally, what does that mean? And what really sealed the deal for me is at the end of this chapter, which is chapter 5, by the way, she realizes that Nathan is in love with her. I can't help smiling. There's nothing wrong with a high priest falling for his goddess, especially if she's built around the concept of such affections. But she literally just mentioned that she was worried that she was influencing him. Like, I don't understand their relationship whatsoever. And this is another example of this book just being too much, doing too many things. I just don't like it. It's balancing so many plot points and only like one of them is interesting, and it's not even interesting in a good way. It's interesting in a campy bad way. Like, what do you mean she's going to become a television star? I want to see that glamour. I want to see that lifestyle, but I have to trudge through so much boring bullshit to get there, and I just don't want to anymore. So, page 73, chapter 6, the first sentence is, I don't care what Talia says, that place is a trap. We don't fucking know who Talia is. It's just a sentence to get you interested in the chapter, and that is when I said, I'm done with this book. I can't keep going. Everything that I told you happened 73 pages into a 372 page book. There are 300 more pages in this book. I hope you can understand why I had to DNF this, why I needed to protect my peace, and I hope that you forgive me for doing so. Because guys, let's be so fucking real. The only books that I have read in the past couple of months have been books for school, Fatale, Gabby Hanna's poetry, and this. I need to move on. There is a very small part of me that wants to keep this book because in theory, I would love to come back to it. I feel like there is so much camp potential that I just didn't get to in this book, but a majority of myself wants to burn it in my backyard. But for now, I think that I just need to let it go. I need to give it a hug and a kiss goodbye. I need to just not think about it. I need to move on to something else. Life is too short to be doing things that you simply don't want to do, and I simply don't want to keep reading this book. So, I'm not going to. Thank you for letting me rant about the worst books that I have ever read. Just a little bit of insider tea. It's been like a month and a half since you last saw me because it has taken me so long to get through literally like 20 pages of this book. Dead ass. Like, I think in that last section I filmed, I was on like page 50 of that, and I only got to like page 73. And while part of me thinks that I was being like a little bit dramatic about Fatale, I actually don't think so, because still, right now, I cannot think of a single positive thing to say about it. And it was a complete waste of my time, and I was especially frustrated by it because I was reading this, and I didn't want to waste my time with any more shitty books. So I'm not going to waste my time anymore with more shitty books because I'm over it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for letting me rant about the worst books in the entire world. Make sure you do all of the YouTube shit, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, divas.